Day 100, President Trump marking a milestone in his second term. One World starts right now. From the economy to foreign policy to climate change, we'll examine the policies of this administration. Plus, Canada's Prime Minister is taking a victory lap and sending a warning to its neighbour in the south. And we'll have the latest on the rising tensions between India and Pakistan after a deadly militant attack in Kashmir. Live from Atlanta, I'm Linda KINKADE. This is One World. 100 days ago, Donald Trump reclaimed the White House with a sweeping agenda and the support to get it done. And for better or worse, he is delivering on a lot of it, like imposing tariffs, scrapping treaties, expanding executive power, and dramatically reshaping the federal government. President Trump will celebrate his first 100 days with a rally in Michigan later today, a state that's been particularly hit hard by his trade war. So how is he doing at this milestone? Well, new CNN polling released this hour shows growing dissatisfaction with the president. 64% of people say they think things are going badly in the country right now. 36% say they're going well. And when asked about their feelings on the remainder of Trump's second term in the White House, 41% said they were afraid. Only 28% said they were optimistic. But it's not just the president that's underwater when it comes to public sentiment. 62% of respondents said they disapprove of Republican leaders in Congress, and 72% disapprove of Democratic leadership. Many voters angry at the lack of inaction when it comes to fighting Trump's agenda. Well, the U.S. Treasury Secretary is defending President Trump's trade policies, even as U.S. stocks are on track for their worst first 100 days of any presidential term in more than 50 years. Scott Bessent says the uncertainty that's been roiling markets in recent weeks is a negotiating tactic, and that President Trump is bringing, quote, strategic uncertainty into the negotiations. The White House says the president will sign an executive order on auto tariffs later today. According to Bessent, revenue from tariffs could be used to pay for income tax relief.
What President Trump is referring to is the ability for tariff revenue to give income tax relief. And I think there's a very good chance that we will see this in the upcoming tax bill. The president campaigned on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and the restoring interest deductibility for autos, for American-made autos. So tariff income could be used for tax relief on all of those immediately.
But the state of the U.S. economy has many Americans concerned. CNN polling shows 59% of people asked say that Trump has made the economy worse. Only 27% say he's made it better. CNN reporters are covering all angles for us. Matt Egan will take a closer look at President Trump's handling of the economy. But let's begin with the latest polls. BETSY KLEIN joins us from the White House. Great to have you both with us. So, Betsy, the polls show the majority of Americans disapprove of Trump's first 100 days in office. And this, of course, is the lowest rating in at least 7 decades. And looking ahead, many Americans are quite pessimistic about the future, right?
That's exactly right. And since the Eisenhower administration, indeed, Linda, we are learning that the president really campaigned on the economy in November of 2024. He ran on lowering prices, restoring American manufacturing. But really, we have witnessed him overhauling the U.S. and global economic system in his first 100 days in office. And we're also starting to get a clearer picture of how Americans view those moves. So according to this brand new CNN polling, asked how the president has affected U.S. economic conditions, 59% of Americans say he has worsened those conditions. 27% say he's improved those conditions. 14% say no effect. 55% of Americans notably say that the president's tariff policy, they disapprove of his tariff policy. Now, the president has long used tariffs, particularly the threat of tariffs, as a key negotiating tactic, and we saw that in the lead up to his so-called Liberation Day on April 2nd when he installed widespread reciprocal tariffs. The president eventually backing off, issuing a 90-day pause on tariffs with most countries, but we're also in an intensifying trade war between the U.S. and China with 145% tariffs remaining in place, really causing massive economic disruption, rattling businesses, investors, and consumers. As you mentioned, the U.S. stock market on track for its worst first 100 days since the Ford administration in 1974. Overall, Americans, Linda, are worried. The president and the White House keenly aware of economic sentiment and, of course, how it could ultimately impact midterm elections coming up in about a year and a half.
Yeah. And of course, later today, Betsy, Donald Trump will head to America's auto capital, Detroit, Michigan. He is expected to announce a change in the way the auto industry will be tariffed to avoid stacking taxes. Just explain.
That's exactly right. The president is traveling to the greater Detroit area, the heart of the auto industry, a working class area that he won handily in November, 55.9%. And there is so much anxiety in this area, specifically on cars and about tariffs on cars and car parts for the auto industry, as well as for Americans looking to buy a new car, as well as for Americans with an existing car that may need a repair. But Howard Lutnick, the president's commerce secretary, appeared to confirm that a deal has been made to provide some relief on those tariffs. He said, quote, "This deal is a major victory for the president's trade policy by rewarding companies who manufacture domestically while providing runway to manufacturers who have expressed their commitment to invest in America and expand their domestic manufacturing." I also want you to listen to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who spoke from the White House just a moment ago.
President Trump has had meetings with both domestic and foreign auto producers, and he's committed to bringing back auto production to the U.S. So we want to give the automakers a path to do that quickly, efficiently, and create as many jobs as possible.
So, of course, as the president makes this decision on tariffs on autos, it clearly marks another reversal or perhaps a negotiation tactic. But as he prepares to celebrate his first 100 days, he's done really a media blitz, Linda. We saw him do interviews with Time Magazine and The Atlantic. He's expected to sit down today with ABC News. We'll be watching later today.
Yeah, we'll be certain to tune in for that. Betsy KLEIN, good to have you with us. And to you, Matt, the economy was the reason Donald Trump was elected. He promised to improve it on day one. He promised to bring down the cost of living. Instead, he launched this global trade war, and the stock market has been slammed. Just take us through the economic concerns after 100 days of Donald Trump.
Yeah, Linda, it really does seem like both Wall Street and Main Street are giving two thumbs down to the Trump agenda. As you and Betsy were just talking about, the U.S. market on track for its worst 100-day start to any presidential term since 1974. Of course, that was under Gerald Ford after the resignation of Richard Nixon during Watergate, and that was during the great stagflation crisis. So that is quite telling right there. But also on the Main Street front, we just got new numbers in on consumer confidence showing that U.S. consumer confidence plunged in April to the lowest level since May of 2020. Think about that for a moment, right? That, of course, was during the COVID-19 crisis. And the latest CNN polling does speak to a lot of doom and gloom on Main Street, seeing that 69%, more than 2/3 of adults, say that a U.S. recession is likely in the next year. Only 30% say it's unlikely. And yes, some of this pessimism is being driven by Democrats, but it's not just Democrats. This CNN poll found that 39% of people who voted for President Trump just a few months ago, they also think that a recession in the next year is very or somewhat likely. And look, there is a risk in an economy that is driven by consumer spending. There's a risk that all of this pessimism ends up making a recession a self-fulfilling prophecy, where people decide to save more money and spend less. Maybe they decide to not go on vacation, not buy a car, not go out to eat. You could have a situation where there's a negative feedback loop where confidence drops and spending falls, forcing companies to lay off workers. That would cause more market trouble and also lower confidence. It can be a tough thing to get out of. Now, none of this means that a recession is inevitable. It's not, right? It's entirely possible that people are telling pollsters that they hate the economy and they're going to keep spending anyway. That's what we saw 3 years ago. Still, though, I did talk to David Kelly over at JP Morgan, and he told me that he does think that at least a shallow recession is likely for the United States unless there's a dramatic reversal from the president on tariffs. And Linda, if there were a dramatic reversal, that would just feed this policy whiplash that has really confused CEOs, small business owners, investors, and yes, consumers.
And it certainly doesn't help that a majority of Americans think a recession is likely. But Matt, I want to ask you about particular companies. Amazon right now planning potentially to highlight the price rise on products thanks to Trump's tariffs. And from what we heard from his press secretary today, he sounds like he's pretty upset about that prospect.
Yeah, it was really startling to hear how forcefully the White House this morning attacked Amazon over what was a reported move over displaying tariffs on the website. Take a listen to the White House press secretary earlier.
About Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Now, in just the last few moments, we have heard from Amazon clarifying what's going on here. Now, in a statement to CNN, an Amazon spokesperson says that the team that runs our ultra low-cost Amazon Haul store has considered the idea of listing import charges on certain products. Teams discuss ideas all the time. This was never a consideration for the main Amazon site, and nothing has been implemented on any Amazon property. So in case you're not familiar, Amazon Haul is the competitor that Amazon has to Shein and Temu. And the company is clarifying that, yes, this is something that they considered. It hasn't actually happened yet. But I do think that this forceful response from the White House does show how sensitive U.S. officials are about anything that would, A, increase prices, or B, cast any sort of blame for those increased prices. Linda?
All right, Matt Egan for us. Our thanks to you, and also Betsy Klein. Thanks so much.